Hey, what's up? Oh, that's really funny. Um, so you could probably hear the music speed up, and that's because I think when you like long press on a video, it plays it at 2 times speed, which is really funny when it happens with music, because when I'm pausing, I always do it like very slowly, so I end up long pressing for like a second. So the music goes really fast for like a second, which is really funny, and it's even funnier when I'm streaming. Anyway, hello, hi everyone. Um, I'm Ben. Welcome. Today I'm doing tabletop role-playing game dev stuff, which I've done a couple times. Um, First, yes, I want to address the audio allegations. Um, Apparently my audio has been garbage and I had no idea. So let me know if you notice any difference. It should be significantly louder. That's the gain. And also not fizzy. That's the noise filter. Uh, so yeah, I'm gonna need that tonight. So if it still sounds garbage, you think, just let me know. Um, yeah. Anyway, so TTRPG stuff. I'm gonna make myself small so I can we can look at this. I also updated my overlay for this so that it matches my gaming one. So I don't know, kind of a small thing, but there you go. We're consistent now. Um, yeah. So this is gonna be a game dev stream. I'm gonna be talking a lot, probably. When I've done the TTRPG stuff in the past, most of what I've streamed so far has been editing tables, which, while thrilling in its own way, did not really involve a lot of game dev, except when I was sporadically balancing stuff, which I was trying to avoid doing. This time, though, we're going to be talking about magic items and research. Um, I know, you'll never be able to tell. I'm playing a game right now, actually, in the background. You think this is enough for me? It is not. Um, So magic items research. Ooh, I saw my mic peak there. That was loud. Sorry, I'm distracted by the audio now. Okay, focus. Magic items and research. That's like scrolls, wands, potions. Um, it's using them, it's creating them, copying them, that sort of thing. A lot of those rules are kind of niche in TTRPGs, especially spell research, which I've never seen anyone do in a TTRPG, but they are important to have, I think, in case anyone does want to do them. And also, using the stuff is more important and not as niche. So that's where we are in this to-do list. We were finally able to cross off rework table to new format. And actually, I want to show off the table. I'm already at the right section, but I'm going to skip around and show off the table because you might remember what I was editing it to look like. But I did figure out how to get it into 2 columns. And okay, well the spacing of that is still not great. But look at this. Look at this beautiful bi-columnar sort of wonderfully formatted list. It makes me very happy to see. And it's way better than this. This is what it looked like before. So, anyway, whether or not that was exciting to watch, questionable, but streaming it did make me do it, which is what I was going for, and now it looks a lot better. So that's awesome. Um, Anyway, magic items. Cool. So it's this whole section, and I don't really remember it very well because it's been like years since I looked at it last, like in any depth. I think I've got a note like right here, section in progress. Um, I will also say that this section, this especially like the part in like under this part, the section in progress part, is based on Lamentations of the Flame Princess, which is an RPG that inspired this one a lot. And I've got the PDF here, which I might be referencing. It's kind of weird for me to be streaming this because like normally I'd be working on 2 screens, but when I'm streaming I've only got the one that I can show. So most of the stuff in that document is like literally pasted in here as like a baseline. Not all of it, but some of it. You can like the stuff that has weird spacing, this is pasted directly. So we're gonna go through, we're gonna read it. We want to get away from copying Lamentations directly. We want to make it our own thing. And also, what is in Lamentations isn't going to work for our system anymore. But we want to get away from it. And yeah, so we'll be going through it, we'll be editing it, and deciding what works best. So yeah, I'll just start doing that, and we'll see how it goes. And I think I'm probably not going to play music in the background because when I need to think, which I might have to do here, the music distracts me sometimes. So we'll see. But as we go, I might leave like little notes here in highlights so we can come back. So I'll just read this. I'll go through, I'll read this aloud, which will help me think about it too. And we'll edit it. And if you have any comments or questions, the audience, please comment. I would love to do collaborative game dev here. Okay. Magical items and time taken for magical activities. So this first blurb, the same as Lamentations of the Flame Princess with a couple of key differences. The section below contains the rules for using an item as well as how the process of creating that item has changed. So I'm just going to take this out because we want to avoid references to Lamentations of the Flame Princess, and we want this document to be freestanding. Yeah, this is one of the biggest things left for that. So, not having read this section in a long time, questions that I want this section to answer are how to use potions, wands, and scrolls. That's what people are going to care about the most. So that should be the easiest to find. How to make potions, wands, and scrolls. And that includes for spells that you know, and also how to research spells. Because sometimes in a game, players will might want a specific spell on the spell list, and I think it's fine to let them like do research and learn that if they put in like the time and resources, or more fun if they have like their own spell that they want to make. That's also totally fine. They just have to put in time and resources and run it by the DM, and bam. And also what the class differences are going to be, which I think is going to be just in each section, but how like magic users interact with scrolls and potions versus how clerics do. Can every class use a wand? The answer is yes in this system, I think. But we'll see what it says. Because oftentimes what it says on the document does not match the answer in my head, unless I've edited it like a million times. So this is good. And also, before we start, we're gonna glance back at our design pillars, our guiding lights of the design of this TTRPG. So I'll just read those. And they will, when we are in doubt, hopefully we'll be able to look back at these and they will guide us to the right answer. So our design pillars are: since most play will take place at low levels, content should be front-loaded so that players experience it. And that means, in this context, maybe making spell research like accessible, not absurd, but we'll see. Next, rolling on tables and options are fun. When implementing tables options in subsystems, be mindful of its benefit versus the detriment of overwhelming players or slowing down play. Okay. And OSR system with quirky weird options and faster leveling. Okay. And now we have gone over the intro stuff extensively. And we can go back to reading. Where the fuck was that? Okay. Identifying magical items. This link to the skill Arcana. Detect magic in conjunction with a successful magic roll can be used to precisely identify any magical item. Just gonna spell detect magic. Yep, that's true. Though, yeah, that makes sense. Because we don't have identify as a spell. So detect magic determines magical plus arcana. That makes sense. If a group wants, and this is an important rule too, because this is going to come up a lot. If a group wants to identify a magical item using just arcana in the field, so just using their arcana skill, they may roll once using the group's highest arcana score. Succeeding this roll on a potion, scroll, wand, or staff will correctly identify the contained spell effect, but not the number of charges or any other information. Succeeding this roll on any other obviously magical item will give you a vague impression of the effects. For example, the item increases your physical abilities, protects you, school of magic, etc. Arcana cannot be used to identify whether or not an item is magical. So I remember writing this rule, and I like this, I like how this works in this system. I think that having Arcana give you the vibes of an item, is good. I know players want exact information, but I think that it's better and it's more in the OSR spirit to let them like figure out what a magic item is and how it works. And I think that that works here. But it allows it to not be like so arcane that it is like literally unusable. Which is a problem sometimes. Even with this rule, it's a problem. But that's okay. That's part of the OSR mystery player skill thing. But yeah, that's fine. And you can identify potions and scrolls with the Arcana roll, no problem. So that's good. Okay, creating magical items. All casting classes: magic users, clerics, elves, muscle wizards, necromancers, and inheritors. I think that's all of them. May create wands, staffs, potions, and scrolls. Okay. Magic users require a research laboratory. Clerics require a personal shrine. Elves require a natural sanctum. Muscle wizards require a private gym. Necromancers require a creepy lair. And inheritors require a live animal laboratory, which increases daily costs by this amount per day to feed the animals. Any failed project has a 10% chance to trigger a miscast, including Wrath of God as applicable. Okay. So, just reading this section, there are questions like, how does this work? So this is based on the Lamentations rules, where magic users need like a library to do magical research, and specifically the library has to have like a certain value of items in it. And that is what enables them to do the research of spells of a certain level or whatever. Like narratively, it is that they have like, you know, the rare tome. I mean, not even narratively, but literally, they have like rare tomes and rare artifacts in their library to help them with their research. And mechanically, it's like it requires a resource sink. Like you need to build a library. Um, so I do like that here, and I like that here, like we have the different flavors of labs. Mechanically, I think they all work the same, except for the live animal lab, which I specify. Um, but like, how much do they cost, and how do they impact research? Um, that is a completely unanswered question here. And I think there's going to be more stuff on that, but we're going to have to like go through it here. Um, because I think this whole part is going to talk about how laboratories work. So, yeah, we'll see what it says and start from there. And obviously we will need to reformat a lot of this and like regroup it, but that's okay. We can do that as we're going or later. Okay, spell research. Clerics writing a scroll. Any cleric can create a spell scroll for any spell they are able to cast. This process costs 50 SP per day in offering to the cleric's deity and or ritual expenses. Only one scroll may be created at a time. Okay, so the critical part here is 50 SP per day. And then the question mark here is, how long does that take? So, okay. I want to skip down to time magical activities so we could answer that question. So I'm going to skip down here. We'll go back up. When writing scrolls or researching spells, the character and player will never know exactly how long it will take. And this I think is all taken directly from Lamentations. So we'll be changing it. Or maybe it's modified a little bit because it says GM and not referee. The player must declare ahead of time how long the character will take to perform the activity. I remember this. The GM will randomly determine the actual necessary length of time it should take according to the table below, which the player may also use to estimate how long they wish to work. The period must be uninterrupted for the character. Any significant interruption undoes all work, and the project must be started anew. The costs up to that time are wasted. Only after the time passes in-game and the money is spent can success be determined. If the character spent time equal to or greater than the amount necessary, then the work is automatically a success. If the character spent less time, the entire project is a failure, all work has been for naught, all money has been wasted, and the process must begin from scratch. The time required is doubled if the cleric is not working in a temple or church of his religion, so this is the laboratory thing, of a size more than 1,000 square feet times the spell level. So that's how the laboratory factors in. The character's wisdom modifier, which would be spirit in our system, because we don't have wisdom. Just gonna replace that. Is applied to the final number of required days, with a positive modifier lessening the number of days, of course. The minimum amount of time it takes to research spells or write scrolls is never less than a day. Okay. So I think that this sort of format of like it takes a random amount of time is consistent. I'm just scrolling down to check that. Yeah. It's the same for magic users. Yeah, and that's all that's detailed here. It's just clerics are working differently from the rest of the magic users, which makes sense because of divine versus chaotic magic. Where were we? So here's another question too is do we want something different for Necros versus MUs or other magic classes? So in this rule split, like there's different rules for clerics and the other magic users, which makes sense, like I just mentioned. In our system, there's a stronger distinction between, specifically, especially between necromancers and magic users, because they have different spell lists entirely. Um, so it probably would make sense to keep doing that, but they also miscast the same way as magic users. So I don't know, something to consider. Um, yeah. So I think the first question I want to ask here is, um, do we like this format of the time taken is random and the player has to gamble on it? Um, or and what are our alternatives if we don't like it? So let's think about that for a sec. Um, so the randomization is kind of interesting in this format in the sense that it makes it like a little mini game where the player is betting against the average. But I feel like I feel like a lot of the time, unless players are mass producing things, I feel like most players will probably put in the maximum amount of time that they can, unless their resources prohibit them from doing so. Um, so it's 50 SP per day, at least for scrolls. It might be different for spells. Yeah, spells are 100 SP per day, so they will be limited by resources mostly. Um, Holy water is free, just takes a long time. So, oh, we should pull up any dice as well. I'm gonna pull up any dice, and we'll just drag that on screen. Um, we can calculate these, but it'll be good for reference. So 2d6, we know the average is 7. 46, the average is 14. So we should be keeping that in mind when we're thinking about the activity time here. Um, so we shouldn't get too ahead of ourselves here, but making like a little table of like the estimated times would be useful, at least at some breakpoints. So that would just be 714 days. And we'll go up to, oh wait, actually, pause for a second. We are getting ahead of ourselves. We're getting way ahead of ourselves. Because another question, a more basic question we need to answer is, so this system that we're like mostly copying from Lamentations is written under the assumption of like a normal Vancian magic system, which is like Dungeons and Dragons magic, where the spells come at particular levels. But in our system, as you might remember, if you've watched any of my spell list editing things, the spells are levelless and they scale with level. So what does spell level mean for us? I think it can mean the same thing. Because like you can cast magic missile at n is 1 versus n is 3 or whatever, like with it the n being the caster level, but it is going to scale differently and it is going to work differently. So it can be similar, but we should be keeping that in mind. So first, let's ask if we like the format and what the alternatives are. We should come up with alternatives anyway. So I'll just write down my thoughts. Um, I think the system is okay. It's kind of interesting with the um, variable time minigame it makes players play. And it seems very resource limited. Another question that is not answered here is how much do labs cost? Um, it's not that interesting. I don't think it needs to be, because it's kind of it's a relatively minor part of the game. But I feel like there are probably improvements that we could make. Um, so I guess the things that I like about it is that there is a little bit of interest with it being sort of chance-based, which is fine. What I don't like about it is that it seems like it's probably makes it very inaccessible for new players or for low-level players, which is probably by design because you don't necessarily want level 1 characters like making up spells or being able to like mass produce scrolls or whatever. So I get that. Um but okay, if we go back to like the table, we'll just add a few things. We'll keep it the same where we talk about n is whatever. Um the highest n, which is like spell level in our system, is going to be 11. N is 1 is at levels 1 and 2. We'll do N3 and 5. So this is like N is 1 is like where most of gameplay. N is 3 is like the higher end of low level play. It's like levels 4 and 5. N is 5 would be like for veteran players, they'd be like level 8 or 9. And then N is 11 is like the theoretical maximum of our system, which we should be keeping in mind. So this is going to be the expected time. This column is going to be the expected time without a lab. And this one's going to be the expected time without a lab, which will just be double. So it's just going to be 714, and this is where we're going to use any dice just to make this quicker so I don't have to do the mental calculation. Okay, 3 times 2d6 is, yep, that makes sense. Then double that would be 42. Okay, 5 times 7 is going to be 35. 70. And see, these numbers get really big really quick. And n is 11 is 7,754. And then doubling that for no lab. 28, 42, 84. 70, 140, and 154, 308. Yeah, so we did that to get like a good idea about like what it looks like for this. And to me, this paints a picture that is in line with like what I was sort of fearing here, is that it is pretty inaccessible um, for low-level players. And we should also add an average cost. Um, so I'll add labels here. Spell level, time taken for scrolls, and for researching spells, and then expected cost for scrolls and for researching spells, and then I'll just see if I can make this vaguely readable for people who are watching the stream. And column 3 is without a lab, which is just double. So, right. Okay. So under this current system, researching or creating a scroll, writing a scroll, and I'm ignoring protection scrolls for now because that part's fucked, IMO. It's 50 per day, so we get 350, 7 times 50, 350. Spell research, not only does it take twice as long, but it is twice as expensive. So the average cost is quadruple. So it is 1400 SP at level 1 to research a level 1 spell on average. And if you're playing it safe and don't want to waste that money, then you're probably going to spend like 2k at least. And let's just get, I have an okay idea of like SP values and what they mean, but I'm just going to go to the equipment list so that other people have a good idea. So for reference, character creation, you start with like, in this system, like maybe 50 SP to spend. And chain armor is 100 SP. Most characters aren't going to be able to afford that at character creation. Leather armor is 25 SP. Plate armor is 1000 SP. That's expensive and also very good armor. Most weapons, I'm not sure if this list is up to date. It probably is. Most weapons are in the range of like 15 to 20 SP. Bows are like, yeah, 30 SP. Most things on the spell list are not more than like 20 SP, and most are a lot less. For 1000 SP, you could buy like a boat. A small boat, admittedly. A wagon, like 4 wagons, I guess, or more. 2 war horses. Like, it's a lot of money, is the point. Um, so I'm just gonna keep writing this down, I think. Um, and can we do normal math here? Yeah. Oh, that's not the most convenient way to do that, I have to say. I'm just gonna keep that on my second monitor, so I don't have to do weird things. Okay. 70 or 700. And this will be 2800. This is 1050 expected cost. 4200 expected cost. Ugh. I think in the long-running campaign where that I'm playing right now in this system for reference. We've been playing the campaign for multiple years. Um, I think the most SP our party has had at a time is maybe like 15,000, around there. So yeah, so this is pretty inaccessible amounts of money, especially as you get to higher level stuff. Yeah. So the spell research, I think we're gonna need to split out spell research versus the potion scroll staff wand stuff. Well, it's gonna be potions and scrolls are gonna be pretty similar, and then staffs and wands are probably gonna be pretty similar. And then researching a spell is gonna be something different entirely. Because since we don't have the spell levels, this whole thing, with like it costing different amounts for researching different level spells isn't really gonna make sense. Unless it's no, I don't think so. Um, because I don't think you'd want the cost to change based on like how powerful you are as a magic user, because then that would make spell research more expensive the higher your level is like to learn new spells, which doesn't really make sense. And like theoretically also you could make it so that players could research spells so that they could be used at a certain level, like only, but that's weird and bad also, and like it's not, that's like a weird limit. Um, so anyway, we're just gonna have to do something different. Um, cool. 1750, this is 7,000. And we're just gonna, I don't think we really need to fill out the whole table, but we're just going to for completeness. Um, 7 times 50, 38, 50. Um, 154. 10 will be times 10, times 100, times 1,000. No, we're only doing times 100. Okay, cool. I was like, that seems wrong. 15,400 is absurd already, but even that is a little too big. Um, yeah, this is crazy. 1,000 and 30,000. So, yeah, the moral here is that it's too expensive. Um, like, even if you have a lab, not factoring in the cost of a lab, if you're like a level 4 character that wants to make one scroll of magic missile, like if you play the average amount, which players probably will not do, they'll probably spend more. It'll cost you 1,000 SP to make one scroll of magic missile, um, which is enough to buy a small boat, as we just mentioned. So I get where they're coming from with that, but it's kind of a lot. I think probably too much. Um, yeah. So anyway, now that we've gone that out in detail, mostly for interest, um, but it's also given us time to think about it. So so how do we want to change it? Spell research cost should be level agnostic. That's one. Um, and potion scroll cost should be less. Okay, these are good things to keep in mind. Um, we kind of got sidetracked though because we were trying to think of alternatives to this system. Um, so I think one obvious alternative is it takes a fixed amount of time. You don't have to play this mini game. Um, for example, 4 days per N for potions and scrolls. That's kind of boring, honestly. And it also, I just want to list it for like the sake of reviewing it. But it's kind of boring, first of all. And it also removes the chance of a project failing. One thing that is cool about this current system that I didn't list is that projects can fail, um, which is like, so-so in general, but I do like this. I think I added this clause. Like, there is a chance for a failed project to cause magical chaos, which is fun. Um, so I do like projects having a low chance of failing. Um, but I also like players being able to offset that fail chance by investing more resources in it. So I like the current system better than fixed amount of time for sure. Um, what other alternatives can we think of? Just thinking about like potions and scrolls, time taken. I mean, you could introduce more variables that like different types of scrolls or potions take different amounts of time, but that's not like really fundamentally changing the system if it's still like variable, randomly determined. It's just a little more flavorful, but probably kind of unnecessarily complex. Um, God, I don't know. I don't know how other systems do it. Let's look up how 5e does it. Uh, 5e making scrolls. This is a good baseline. RPG stack exchange. How can a character create a spell scroll? Xanathar's Guide to Everything adds optional rules for creating spell scrolls. Blah, blah, blah. They must have the spell. They just have a time cost and gold cost per a fixed time and gold cost. So there's no fail chance in 5e. That makes sense. Okay. Yeah, I like the fail chance here. Um, one thing I'm thinking, and this is kind of peripheral, but is and not necessarily tied to the system, but it is fun for me. Um, is like maybe we have different options. Hmm. This is for spell research. I don't even know if this is a good idea, but I'm gonna write it down. Um, I was kind of thinking while we were going over this that for research, like there could be different kinds, maybe potentially. Like you could do focused research, like I want to learn magic missile, which would be more expensive, versus like I want to learn a just scrolling down to my spell types. I want to learn a chaotic spell. I want to learn a natural spell. I want to learn a polymorphing spell. That would require making more subtables, I think, so it's easier to look these things up. But that's fine. I can do that. Just something to consider. I think that's a pretty good idea. But we should consider like how much control does it give players over what spells they have. We kind of want to limit that since our spells are like randomly determined anyway. Yeah. So anyway, just an idea. Okay, do we have any different ideas for time taken for making scrolls and potions? I don't think we should think too hard if nothing comes. Because like I said, I don't think it needs to be crazy. It would be good to look at more examples of how other systems do it. Let me see if I can find any really quick. Oh, we can check the OSC SRD. That's online. We can look at it quickly. Magical research. I'll scroll this over. Oh. Okay. Cool. So OSC SRD is up to the DM, for the most part, and also 1 week per spell level and 500 GP, which would be SP in our system per spell level. In 5e, that's the time is a lot less. Well, it kind of actually goes up a lot more. This is like a more exponential increase in both time and gold. I didn't see this at the bottom, but it takes like an insane amount of time and money to make a 9th level thing. That's interesting. Cool. Anyway. Cool. So I think I'm cool with keeping it sort of similar to how it currently is. Um, though I think that it should be less. Um, so scroller potion. And we'll just have to reword this too. We want it to be less. How much less do we want it to be? How much should it cost on average to create a scroll level 1? With a lab? Probably like 200 SP. I don't know. That seems reasonable. So what does that translate to in dice? My instinct is to just lower it to 2d4. That's 250. That's not too far off. And if we made it 40 SP per day instead of 50 SP per day, that would be 200. Yeah, so that's like 5 days on average. Okay, I think that's more reasonable. We can like math that out if we want, but I think that like tentatively, that's an okay baseline change to make. So we're going to change that to 4. And then we're going to work on the wording of this, but we're going to change this to 40. So I think that that's kind of a small change in all things considered, but we did think about it a lot. And I think it helps to make it more accessible. Because obviously, and this table is 2d6 50 SP per day. And 46 100 SP per day. So now we have to think about spell research. I think so. Yeah, this one's trickier because our spells are levelless. I don't really want the spells to. I don't really want it to be absurdly expensive to learn new spells, but I also don't want to give high level players the opportunity to just have know every spell. So it's kind of tricky. I wonder if I wrote anything about this. Um, in the magic user section. We should be keeping in mind that this is for cleric spells too. And maybe we want it to be easier for clerics versus magic users. Since their spells are like weaker generally. Something to keep in mind. Yeah, okay. This has more explicit rules. Yeah, that's weird that the cleric laboratory is like defined in like square feet, and the magic user's laboratory is defined in like SP per level. Yeah, and then libraries and laboratories, they go really in depth here on like how much it costs, how much supplies are used. Yeah, I don't know if we need all that. That's kind of a lot to look at. Hmm. Okay. There's a lot to think about here. Let me know if you have any thoughts in the audience. Research. Level agnostic. I'm drawing a blank at the moment, but I'll think of something. So we want it to be level agnostic. So what can it be based on? Um, that means that I guess there would just be a flat dice. Flat dice roll for time and probably an increased cost. Which is what it currently is, because it's 100 SP. I think I want the cost to be around 2000 SP, which is expensive. This is for a targeted spell. This is just my first pass, what I think it should be. Um, but I do want some mechanism to be in place to prevent characters from learning too many spells. So that would be like and I kind of like okay. So increase cost per number of spells learned. Supplies consumed, which is basically just making the spell more expensive. Or like hard limit on the number of spells you can learn. That's interesting because it kind of goes against what I was saying about like I don't want the cost to scale with caster level because I feel like that introduces a weird like meta where you want to do all of your research at lower levels or like you recruit low level magic users to be like research slaves, which is kind of how it works in the real world. Um, but that aside, that's not for the same reasons. Um, though basing it on your number of spells known kind of makes it based on level, but also more importantly makes it based on the more research you do, the more expensive it is. Number based on number of spells learned through research, cost increases with number of spells researched. That kind of has weird like lore implications, I feel like. Cause like the not that I care that much. But like the lore justification for that would be like as you learn more magic, like your brain get this is more for chaotic magic than clerics. But as you learn more magic, your brain gets like overloaded with the magic and it becomes harder to learn new things, but not or like it takes something out of you when you like research a spell like this, which is kind of cool. I kind of like that. I can write that down. It's kind of a cool lore thing. And it doesn't affect, and you get a random spell on leveling up for chaotic casters. Um, well, for some level ups anyway. I don't think that should influence it. For clerics, you also get two spells, I think, on level up. Um, yeah, I kind of like that. I kind of think that's a good way to balance it. I think I want the cost to increase with the number of spells you've already researched because I want it to be relatively cheap. Like it should be relatively accessible to like research a spell. Relatively accessible in this case being 2000 SP, which is still very expensive. Um, and then as you go up after like the first one, it becomes like exponentially worse to learn new spells in terms of cost and time. That's kind of cool. I mean, it makes it kind of suck for high level players because like it makes it so that I mean low level players already you learn a lot of spells quickly because you're leveling up a lot faster at low levels, obviously. Um, I mean, theoretically, higher level players should be able to tackle higher level dungeons and get more loot and level up faster. But so, but in practice, because of the way the levels slow down like exponentially, like once you hit like level 5, leveling up really drags. Um, which is fine. So yeah, maybe not like an exponential increase, but like a hard linear increase would be interesting. And I still like the laboratory, both for like flavor reasons and so that like magic users have to be locked down in like a city for X amount of time when they're researching. I think that makes sense. Just like mostly narratively and flavor wise, but also because like you probably shouldn't be researching a spell in a dungeon, unless there's like a lab there and you're staying there. But I don't know. Um, anyway, cool. So that's kind of interesting. I think we've got it. We've got a good like skeleton here of an idea. Um, let's try and get that down. Good brainstorming, everyone. Um, okay. And we should remember that this is for clerics. I have mostly been thinking in terms of chaotic casters, which is probably a mistake. Um, it should probably be similar for clerics, but I might want it to be a little less. So I might tweak these numbers a bit, but I don't know. Um, okay. So let's try and sketch out a rough draft of what we're thinking. Um, so this would be spell research clerics. So it would look something like clerics can research any spell on their specialization list or the shared list. Okay, it actually should be, it actually does need to be way different for clerics because clerics can pick their spells when they level up anyway. So they have a lot lower motivation to research spells because they should, like in general. So when you're a cleric, you get all the spells in the base, and then you get to pick like 2 spells from your school. And every time you level up, you get to pick like 2 more. And you can also pick from the shared list. Um, versus magic users never get to pick spells, or other chaotic casters never get to pick spells. They only get random spells. So clerics actually have much less reason to research. So that's fine because I think the rules that I was just thinking and writing are mostly for chaotic casters anyway. Um, so I'll keep writing what we were just thinking for chaotic casters, but I think we do need to rethink for clerics a little bit. That's fine. Where was this? Uh, wow, where was this? Sometimes I just get lost here. What the hell? There it is. Okay. So this is for chaotic casters, actually. I take it back. Casters can research any spell on the spell list that they do not know in order to learn it. So we could have a flat dice roll for the time, or we could have the time scale. What do we want to have scale? We want the cost to scale with the number of spells researched. So that means either the time needs to scale or the cost needs, or like the cost per day needs to scale. I think it makes more research to just have the dice scale. We'll write it that way and see how it looks. The time taken for this research is $2d8. How much would that be if it were 100 SP per day? 900 on average. Okay. So 48 would be 1800 on average. That's pretty close to what we want. What happens if we increase it to 120? 2160, 110. That's gonna be 1980. We can just keep it at 100. The time taken for this research is 48 days. So every D8 would be would add an average of 450 SP. So maybe like the wording of this could probably be improved, but I'm just going to write it for myself here. Yeah, we can write this better. It's researched. I'm going to write a lower line here. Chaos into the caster's mind is taxing. Wording pending to change. For every spell this caster has researched previously, add an additional 2d8 days. Okay. Cost 100 SP per day. Cool. That is kind of like the TLDR of this idea that we have. I like it. Admittedly, this is for chaotic casters, which is not really what we set out to do, but that's okay. I like it. Okay, let's go back to thinking about how this is applicable to clerics. Clerics, what are the situations in which a cleric would want to research a spell? This is for known spells also. I think, yeah, so this rule we just wrote specifically is for like any spell on the spell list. Thinking about this again, is it different for like if they make their own spell? Probably not, because if the GM okays it, then it should be equivalent to any spell on the spell list theoretically. So I think that's fine. Yeah. Okay. So that is our use case primarily for clerics doing research. Because clerics are able to learn basically any spell on their spell list that they want. Though, if they are in a situation, there are some niche cases where they might want to do spell research. Like if they're far from a level up, like if they're a relatively high level and they decide that they need one of the like niche spells from the share list, like resist fire, if they're gonna go fight a dragon, for instance, um, then you might be like, okay, well, I can take the time to research that spell and not have to like do through 5 dungeons and level up first and then pick it. So that makes sense. That's a use case. I think that's not really applicable for low level players, but it is a use case. Another use case would be if they want to learn a spell that they make up. I could see that happening for sure. Um, so I guess the question is, where are we? Where are we? Where are we? Here we are. Um, does this need to be different for clerics? I don't really think so. Though we should keep in mind, yeah, are the costs actually the same for magic users for research? We're looking ahead a little bit. Whoa, that's scary. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm looking. This is a block I've clearly written. You can tell because of the way that it is written, or I can tell because of the way that it is written. Um, what's scary here is the wording that we just used is very uncannily similar to the wording down here, which I must have written like 2 years ago. And also, the cost here is the same as what I changed the fucking cleric spell cost to 40 SP per day. And I must have made that change also like 2 years ago because I do not remember it at all. That is fucked up. Anyway, fucking scary shit. Um, but this is not what we're gonna do anymore for this. Um, yeah. So I think it is worth considering cleric spells are weaker than magic user spells by design because you can pick them. I think making it easier to research is okay. Um, for that reason. And sort of the same thing for making scrolls and potions. So like since this is written for chaotic casters, I'm happy with 100 SP per day. We're going to copy this and paste it for clerics. Um, we're just gonna do light changes to the wording. Um, though, here's a question for clerics also, is as I've said before multiple times, the way that clerics work in this system is that they have like specializations that have their own spell list. So you can definitely research things on your specialization spell list and on the shared spell list. Can you research things on other school specialization spell lists? I kind of want to say no. I think that's bad flavor wise. I think that kind of makes the choosing the specialization feel less special if you can just like pick and choose good spells from other spell lists theoretically. Um, or not good spells, but spells that you want. So I think no on that is my instinct here. I think that would be a bad change. Um, a good question to ask. So we'll say clerics can research any spell on their. That's just, I think, going to be a limit inherent to cleric spell research, which I think is fine. So they can, yeah, so they can do anything in their specialization list, the shared list, or anything that their GM says is okay. Um, time is the same. We're just going to change the flavor line. As you make the characterization of like the cleric's gods in the system is very funny because it's just like they're very exasperated with you. Like you're always bugging them for powers, and they're like, fine. And they get annoyed if you ask too much, so this is perfect. This fits in completely with how clerics already work. Appeasing. And then we just knock it down to like 85. Bam. Easy. Um, so we'll just do quick math on that and see if that seems reasonable. So for magic user spells, 1800. Cleric spells, 1530. Yeah, that's completely reasonable. Um, and then about adding about 380 SP for every new spell that you research. It's not a ton. No, sorry. That's per D8, but we're adding 2D8. So 765. Okay. Yeah, that's reasonable. Cool. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Okay. So what questions did we answer? Um, so we did scrolls for clerics, and we just have to like replace the text. We did scrolls for clerics, so that's good. We did researching a spell for clerics, so that's good. We still should probably touch on holy water, whatever this section is. We've touched on time. I think, and what we've said is we want it to be mostly the same as this. Um, but we can reword it. Um, I guess the only other thing I'd want to clarify is like how much laboratories cost and how exactly they factor in. So I think it says in this section. Right. And I think I mentioned this before, but I want to standardize this to be like the same as how it works for Magic users, where it's just like cost based, and then more broadly to like all labs. Okay. Yeah, and we can actually add that in here because we talk about the labs. Um, and we might want to change this to be more parsable, but that's a small detail. Okay, cool. Um, I think this is a good time for me to take a break because brain hurty a little bit from thinking. Good to take a break. And yeah, I will be back in a couple of minutes. And then we will talk about labs and answer the other questions for how cleric work. So, hell yeah, I'll be back in a second. Thank you for watching so far, if you are. I will be right back. hello, 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 hello. I'm sorry, I was gone for so much longer than I planned. I got tied up in a conversation about cars, which, while useful, took longer than I thought it would. I'm car shopping right now, that's why. Um, okay. So, sorry about that delay. We're back. What the hell were we doing? What the hell were we doing? Um, I just went over this. Okay. Yeah, we just did a bunch of the cleric stuff. Okay, yeah, we were going to talk about laboratories, I think. So I wanted to write in this section, um, basically what is down here in the magic user section, which is that I don't know about all of this stuff about in the magic user section about like there's a bunch of extra text in here, like for libraries and laboratories as well, that I don't think we need. I think the gist of what I want is just like um for all of these um layers or labs, um they are required to have a value of 1000 SP and I will reword this per level of n of the research that is going to take place, or 1000 SP, 1000 SP minimum for spell research. So this is kind of adding an additional cost, but I think that's fine. Um, I think that's fine. And it's kind of fun to give, excuse me, like magic users and clerics and stuff like a little a mini layer building thing to play, which is cool. Um, so we can specify more of what that means, but I think that's like the gist of what we're doing. Um, mm, and then for the animal lab, we'll just clarify 5 SP for 1000 SP worth of animals per day to feed the animals. Cool. That rule's in there mostly for fun. Okay, cool. Anyway, sorry, again, back. That's where we are. Cool. That's good clarification. That's how layers work, and that's how they factor into spell research. They cost that much for all of them, and they need to be minimum 1000 SP to do anything. And if you want to create higher level scrolls or potions, they need to have more stuff in them. That's fine. Okay, cool. Okay, and now we want to read about holy water, and we want to read about protection scrolls, which I don't even know if it's going to be applicable to us. Okay, let's start with holy water. Creating holy water. To make holy water, Bless must be cast at the same time every day for 9 days straight on a basin of water in a place holy to the cleric's religion, typically a church. Then on the 10th day, the water must be placed in a vial and the 10th bless cast upon it. Right. Okay. That's fine. Like, it's basically free to cast holy water. Um, to make holy water. Just costs like one safe cast per day, which is not a ton. Um, so the questions for holy water. I had the stats for holy water somewhere. I thought in this section. Maybe not. What was that? Holy water. What's down here? Oh, I put it at the bottom. Okay. Yeah. Holy water is like criminally understated in most RPGs, I think. So I remember it was like 1d8 or 1d6. And I increased it to 1d10, which is good. Um, cool. So the questions to answer here are um, how much holy water can you make any time? And can you make anything else simultaneously? Um, so I think in general, you can only research one thing at a time, which might need to be clarified. The way I sort of envision this is that if you're like writing a scroll, making a potion, and I guess the base rules here don't have clerics making potions because like holy potions is kind of weird, but I think that it's totally fine for clerics to be able to make scrolls and potions the same way that magic users can make scrolls and potions. Though, this leads to the question that, like, what is the difference between a scroll and a potion? Which I don't actually remember, like, practically. So we should find the answer to that real quick. What is the difference between a scroll and a potion in our system? Potions, presumably, you just drank. And you could also throw at people. Um, all classes can cast any spell written on a scroll. Use Arcana to identify an unknown scroll. You do not need to know what a scroll does to cast it. The first time a spell is cast from a scroll, if the caster has never cast a spell before, then roll Arcana, successfully it works. If you fail, the magical effect still occurs. However, you suffer Wrath of God, and you suffer Miscast. So, okay. I feel like potions are just better scrolls than in this system. If any class can cast any spell written on any scroll, which I think is fine, um, I think it should be like that because I want people to be able to use scrolls in potions. Then scrolls just have like a miscast chance, and potions don't. So I think I think you should be able to make potions in scrolls, and I think potions should just be more expensive to make than scrolls. The difference being that you could just like pass out potions to other people. Um, yeah, I don't know. I guess it leads to the question of like, does there need to be a like if they are effectively the same thing, like why have potions at all? The answer is because I think they're kind of too iconic to remove. Like that would just make it incompatible with like lots of things unnecessarily. Um, and also generally like wackier things are in potions than scrolls. That's not always true, but that's my experience. So I don't know. Should there be any other difference between potions and scrolls? I don't think so, unless we want to limit that like only the magic cast classes can cast scrolls. But I don't like that limitation in a system. I'd rather magic items be able to be used by like everyone. Um, or maybe we say I don't know. Maybe we could also say clerics can't make potions, but that seems like a kind of silly limitation. It's like I don't know, like healing potions are kind of iconic, and like you would need a healing cleric to make a cure wounds potion. Okay, yeah. Anyway, that was a major tangent. That's what all this is about. So we'll just placeholder this. Same as above, but we'll just increase the price a little bit. We'll say 50 XP per day. Anyway, back to holy water. Um, right, and we also want to add a note, which we'll write more elegantly in the future. Only one scroll potion research at a time. So that's kind of what I envisioned for research. So like, does holy water factor into it? I feel like it is like weak enough. Holy water is weak enough that it would be like kind of okay to be able to make while you're like researching a spell or making a potion or whatever. I think the options here are like either you can make it simultaneously with other stuff, but only one at a time, or you can't make it at the same time as other stuff. stuff. But you can make multiple limited by the number of times you can cast bless. And I kind of feel like the first one is better. Um, I kind of like the first one better. Yeah, I like the first one better because it's kind of like weaker. So making it concurrently with other, being able to make it weaker with concurrently stuff is good. It makes it so that people might actually do it instead of other things during their downtime, while they're doing other stuff during their downtime. And also, like, limited by the number of times you can cast Bless makes it scale with the Cleric N, which is kind of cool, but also I feel like an unnecessary um, thing to give high level clerics. Like, I don't think they need to be able to mass produce holy water during downtime. That's like kind of ridiculous. Um, yeah, and you don't want, I don't, even though it is easy to make, I don't really want people to be like, mass producing holy water. I mean, holy water is like niche use enough that like that probably is not going to come up, but or yeah, it would probably only be relevant in certain like niche circumstances. So it's fine. Um, cool. So we'll just add. We'll add another highlight here. Holy water can be made simultaneously with other magic items in only one. And the cleric can only produce one holy water at a time. Cool. Hell yeah. Cool. And again, if anyone happens to be watching and they have questions about what is going on in the system, what it's about, or comments about things that I'm writing or saying, please feel free to chime in. Otherwise, I will just keep going. Cool. So that squares away holy water. So thinking about protection scrolls, um, this is kind of an interesting thing, which is in Lamentations. I don't think it's really supported by the cleric spell list in Lamentations, but I might be wrong. But let's just read this. Cleric's protection scrolls. Clerics are able to create scrolls which can repel a type of creature of the cleric's choice. The selected creature type may be specific or broad, as long as it is easily distinguishable which creature falls into that category. This is metal, and also insane, this section. The making of such scrolls requires a sacrifice. A number of creatures of the target type must be sacrificed, in whatever manner or whatever equivalent is appropriate for this cleric, this is insane, to capture the necessary divine favor. The total hit dice value of the creature sacrifice determines the length of time of the scroll's crafting as well as the chance that the preparation will be successful. For each 5 hit dice of this total of monster sacrifice, the cleric must spend 1 day preparing the scroll, while the total number of creature hit dice equals the percentage chance that the process will successfully create a working protection scroll. That is insane. It costs 50 SP per day in offerings, blah blah blah. Protection scrolls, when used, will prevent the target class of creature from approaching within 10 feet of the user for d4 plus 2 turns. That is fucking crazy. For a couple reasons. First up, just straight up sacrificing stuff um, is like metal and also wild. But also like the chances of like how this works, and this is I'm pretty sure just straight out of Lamentations. Um, the total number of creature hit die equals the percentage chance the process will successfully create a working protection scroll. So like in the most basic case, which is like pro protection from undead, right? You need to sacrifice 100 hit die of undead to guarantee that this works. Um, that's like that's like 50 ghouls that you need to like capture and bring back to a church and sacrifice. Um, or like 10. I don't even know what a 10 hit die undead is. This is a good excuse to pull up the OSC SRD monster bestiary. This is just for funsies. Um, monster general. Nope, monster general. Dungeon encounters. What's a scary looking? Whites or 3 hit die. I don't think these are. Oh, we can do it by category. Vampire. Vampire is 7 to 9 hit die. That's like 12 vampires. that you'd have to sacrifice to make a protection from vampires scroll. Um, so anyway, I like this. It's cool. It's kind of insane. I'm also curious, like, I want to look in the check the Lamentations spell list. It's been a long time actually since I've looked at the spell list. Um, where is it? Beginning spells. Right. Where's the list? Okay. Okay, yeah, they have like protection from evil in Lamentations, but not any other protection spell, and no generic spell. In our system, my system, they have what protection spells do we have? We have pro evil and pro good in Undead Repulsion, which is kind of a protection spell. Um, which I have to scroll past. Pro evil. Yeah. Um, -N penalty to hit, +N bonus to save. Huh, yeah. So I just wonder if it's like necessary to have like it's a cool thing to have like those protection scrolls. It would be a cool thing to have, but I don't know if it's like I don't know what they add, really, if anything, besides being cool, which is like, I don't know, good enough reason to exist as anything, really. Um, like I love this idea, but like it doesn't seem like it really fits. I would love to add like another mechanic that allows clerics to sacrifice things for personal gain, because that kind of opens up like a cool mechanical thing for like evil clerics, right? But I guess if you're an evil cleric, like you just want to sacrifice people to your god to appease them, like lore-wise, narratively, and like you don't really need a mechanical justification to do that, either as a player or as an NPC. But I like the idea that sacrificing things to your god gives you something. So something to consider. So I think I want to take out protection scrolls. And I'm going to do that in the ugliest fucking way possible right now. Because we are just going to strike through it. Because I want to remember um, I don't have to be strike through anymore. I don't think this quite fits our system, but I love the idea of clerics being able to sacrifice hit die of creatures to their god for some mechanical benefit. Maybe in research or otherwise? Question mark. So, and we could probably just remove this entirely, actually. I will remember that it is like the important part of this that I want to remember is like you sacrifice things, and it's like the hit die of the things you sacrifice is your chance of success, and I will remember that because that's fucking crazy. So we can just get rid of that, and that's fine. Cool. And that, barring wording and editing, which I feel like I'm probably not gonna do the actual rewriting on stream because that's like not really as interesting. Didn't stop me from doing it with the tables. But this is we have a vague outline of, or we have a good outline for cleric research and time taken for magical activities. And that's solid. Hell yeah. So I think, yeah. So I think we just want to look at magic user stuff for potions and scrolls. Sorry, I was getting lost while I was reading ahead. I was thinking about staffs and wands. We also are going to want to talk about staffs and wands. I was getting lost because I was trying to remember, can clerics make staffs and wands? I might have something written for this. Yes, this is one of the sections that I've written. Um, okay, cool. We'll come back to this later. I'm getting lost just thinking about staffs and wands. That's a whole other topic. Okay, let's wrestle with the stuff for magic users first, and then we can move on to staffs and wands. Okay, so magic users, I think we've done most of the design we need to do for them because I think I want it to be, like I said, really similar to how clerics work, maybe a little bit more expensive because their things are more powerful typically. So, any magic user can create a spell scroll for any spell that they can cast or have access to a scroll of, which should be the same as clerics. We can add or have access to a scroll of. This process costs 50 SP a day, and so yeah, we lowered it to 40 for clerics. So we'll think about what it should be. Only one scroll, and I'll reword this later, but we should clarify here. You can only do one of these at a time between potion scrolls and magic research. Um. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's interesting. It does get more nitty gritty in the magic user stuff because I'm reading ahead. I'll just read this out loud. Um, researching a spell. If a magic user wishes to learn a spell from a teacher, which did not even come up for clerics, it does make sense that it's more relevant for magic users because, like, wizard school, apprentices, whatever. This process costs 20 SP per day in materials. An instructor may charge an additional fee depending on the relationship to the people. And then I have a note that I've written in here. What if you have a scroll that you want to learn the spell from? Um, if a magic user wishes to research a spell without a teacher or existing copy, there is more intensive research to be done. Either spells found on the MU spell list, spells from alternate sources, or holy ritual spells can be researched by MUs as long as 13.ko at GM. This process costs 40 SP per day. So just like we did when we were talking about clerics, let's skip ahead to time taken for magical abilities. Ooh, there is a real whole section on lost stats here, which I'm skipping over. Um, so this is the same thing, but it looks long, so we're going to read it again. When transcribing or researching spells, the character and player will never know exactly how long it will take. The player must declare ahead of time how long the character will take. The referee will randomly determine the actual necessary length of time it should take, according to the table below. The period must be uninterrupted. Time wasted. It's to be determined. Succeed. All money has been wasted. 10% project. Failed project results in a Magical miscast. Magical miscast. Um, the time this has got to make more sense in the fucking Lamentations rules. I might look there to see what they're talking about. The time required for items 1 through 5 is doubled if the magic user is not working in a library worth at least 1000 SP per level of the Stone Collection. Okay, we can take this out because it's clarified in the laboratory section. Time to create a potion is doubled, blah blah blah. Creating water staff. Okay, magic users need both libraries and laboratories. Okay, so I think we can take like all of this out. Because I don't... I'm going to read this also. But this goes into like much more detail about libraries and laboratories for magic users. And I think it's needlessly complicated. Magic users, it's cool, but I think we can do it a lot more simply. Magic users use libraries and laboratories to assist in magical activities. Each library or laboratory is ranked on its cost. For every 500 SP in value a library is worth, a 10 square foot is needed to store the books, and every 1000 SP laboratory is worth requires 10 square foot of space. These are non-transportable, blah blah blah. Laboratory and library elements can only be purchased in large cities. Library laboratories discovered and somehow transported only add 1d 100% of their value to the looter's own due to possible duplication, blah blah blah, between mages. Every time the laboratory is used, the magic user must make a saving throw versus magic. If the roll is successful, the laboratory loses 1d20 times 100 SP in value due to use supplies. If the roll is failed, wastes the supplies and accidents reduce the value of the laboratory by 2d20 times 100 SP. On a natural one, there is a dangerous explosion which destroys both 5d20 times 100 SP of laboratory's value and the parts being worked on. And in addition, the magic user and alchemist are present, suffers 1d10 damage. Save it spread once grasp. Okay. Yeah, so this goes into like a lot more detail about libraries and laboratories and like you need labs for potions. And I think that's also ties into like retainer stuff to some extent because I know you can get like alchemist retainers and stuff like that. But I think a lot of this is I don't really care about. Um, I think something we can take from this potentially is so I think we can take all of this out. Because I think it is covered here now, and we'll just add all time taken is doubled if no lab. Doubled if no. That's the TLDR on that. Yeah, so genuinely we will just take this out. And then this we can mostly take out, but I want to leave in here because we have a note for it. Which is I like the value decreasing with use. Slash cost per use. Here. That's something that's not mentioned at all in the cleric rules, I think because they also, in Lamentations, are nicer to clerics generally. But they are a lot nicer to clerics in Lamentations. Like this is because this is crazy. This is if you succeed the saving throw. Yeah, let's do some quick math here. If you succeed your saving throw to just like do magical research, you're making a level 1 scroll. You lose like on average 1000 SP in supplies. That is like that's greater than the estimated cost of making the scroll by like because it's 50 SP by like 3 times. That's insane. That's if you pass the fucking save and you have to make that save. Let me make sure I'm reading that right. Every time the laboratory is used. Okay. I guess there might be some distinction being drawn between the library and the laboratory, but I'm not sure. Probably not. I don't think it mentions it in the um yeah. Yeah, I think you do need one or like a really appropriate size or it doubles the time. Right. So like you lose 1,000 SP in laboratory supplies for passing the save, which is crazy. Um and you lose double that, like 2,000 SP worth of supplies if you fail. And then, you know, low chance to lose just like a shit ton of value and take negligible damage for some reason. Mostly because it's funny, probably. Um, so anyway, so the point is here is that this is too much. This is way too much, I think. I kind of like the thought of that because it sort of works against the people mass producing thing. I do wonder if it is even necessary. Because, like, if you have a laboratory work 1,000 SP, you're making a level 1 scroll. I mean, if you want to make multiple level 1 scrolls, you're still you still are paying the cost every time to make a scroll. I guess unlike magical research, the cost to make a scroll is never going to change, though it is still going to be like 350 SP on average for a level 1 scroll, which is like kind of makes it hard to mass produce them. Like, unless you have like literally hundreds of thousands, like if you have 100,000 SP, you still can't make more than like 300, which is a lot of level 1 spell scrolls, obviously, but like it's not a lot for 100,000 SP. So like I don't think there's really a need to make it cost an additional like that much every time besides like cool flavor. Yeah, honestly, I don't think we need that. Like obviously these values as I've gone over are like seem like over the top punishing, but just like in general, I think it's already expensive to make things. Um Especially given the like 1,000 SP entry level cost. So, but like even for high level characters, like it will cost them a lot of money and time, especially if they are making spells at or making scrolls or potions at of a higher level. So I don't think there's any need for this. So we can just nix this whole section. Yeah, because we decided against it. So yeah, see ya. Cool, dope. Um, cool. So this was not gonna be an exact science here, but we're just gonna put in some rough numbers. So we said 40 SP for cleric scrolls, 50 SP for cleric potions per day. So for magic user scrolls, we'll just do wham 45 SP per day, just as a ballpark. It's gonna be higher than the cleric one. And then the creating a potion, you'll do 55 SP. That's not a lot more. Maybe it should be like 50, 60. 60. That's some. That's good enough, I think, for just like rough values. That's like roughly proportionally correct. Um, okay. And then there's this mess, which is on spell research. And I haven't done a lot of reorganizing, but I am just going to move this here. And this whole staff or wand thing, this time magical activities should be above staff and wand, I think. At least for now. Um, okay. Whew. Um, okay. Right. So, is there a table? No, there's not a table. I'm just going to copy what we have for clerics. Okay. No, so we have this. I'm going to paste this down here. This is what we wrote for spell research chaotic casters. So this is for any spell on the spell list or any spell okay by the GM that they do not know. So this is this. This is that block. Our cost for it is 100 SP per day. And we've done the math on that. That's like roughly 2,000 SP. Um, so I think what they have here, which is valid, is how does this change with an instructor who knows the spell? And does it change if you have access to the spell or not? I feel like it should, for sure. Like, having access to the spell would be like you find a scroll with a spell that you don't know, and yeah. So I think and I'm wondering another thing we should be considering is should this be different for um clerics? And I think for simplicity's sake, just maybe not. I don't really think there's a reason to. So I think here's what I'm thinking like preliminarily. I think having an instructor teaching you the spell should reduce the cost by a lot. Because it will probably be relatively hard to find instructors, especially for magic users, to teach you spells that you want. So it's okay to make it a little easier. Um, but like there should be a significant bonus for like seeking out a teacher and studying under them, because that's kind of like good magic user vibes, and also like narratively should be a lot easier than doing it just like on your own from scratch. So anyway, where I was going with this is what I was thinking was like, if you have an instructor teaching you this spell, change the D8s in the time taken roll to D4s. So what I like about that is that it has the time, right, basically, but it keeps the penalty for learning more spells. So it does improve your ability to research spells by a lot. But that it is kind of a weird thing. Um, it is kind of a weird thing where it makes it like if you research any spells by yourself before learning spells, I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. I think kind of no matter how you do it, if it is scaling with spells learned, I mean it's better just to have spells taught to you rather than researching them on your own. But like that makes the research on your own versus being taught thing pretty dramatic if it's like the fifth spell that you're researching, because that's the difference between like 10d8 times 100 SP and 10d4 times 100 SP, which like I don't even have to do the math on that. It's a lot. That's like several thousand SP. Um, really big disparity in cost. Maybe just like a flat reduction in the number of days. Like if you have an instructor, I'll do a new line for this because it's a new idea. If you have an instructor teaching you the spell, reduce the time taken to learn it by, say, 46. We will pull up any dice, do some calcs there. We'll just say 4d8 minus 4d6. Okay, so that brings the average down to like 4 days to learn a spell if it's the first spell that you're learning, which is like super cheap if you're being instructed. But then it's still, for subsequent spells, you still are getting the added cost of like 900. Um, what if we did 3d8 just to keep it all d8s? How does that change it? Okay, it's about the same. We'll just make it 3d8. Right, because that would be just 1d8, which is 4.5. Um, hmm. Yeah. So that makes it so that like it's basically just a flat cost reduction of 3 times 100. Flat cost reduction of 1350 SP with the instructor. I like the flat cost reduction better because that removes like the weirdness of the other method where like we're changing the all of the dice rolled. Um, because like this way it doesn't matter what order. Like there's not like an incentive to like research spells first or whatever. Like it's just a flat cost reduction. Or like with the other way, it becomes a lot less appealing to research spells on your own because you're like, this is literally twice as expensive, which if you've researched a lot of spells can be like thousands and thousands of SP potentially. But if it's just 1350 SP, like obviously that's still a lot of money. Like it's very non-trivial. But It's not like horrendous if you like really need to learn a spell. And that makes it so that like if you do find an instructor who is willing to teach you, um, then that makes it like appealing to learn a spell, especially for like new spellcasters where it should be relatively quick, or if you just really need to learn a particular spell, it's just better. I guess it means that like if you are theoretically like a very wealthy spellcaster, um, who like has learned like 10 spells already, um, the cost reduction of 3d8 is not like that appealing to you, but I think that's kind of fine. Um, because it's still money, but like also like narratively, I feel like practiced wizards or magic users are less likely to seek out instructors slash would benefit less from instruction. So I think that that's fine. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so that's if you have someone who knows the spell. So if you have the scroll, how does that change it? It should probably just be similar, right? Let's write this. If you have access to the scroll, but not an instructor, reduce the cost by, or reduce the time taken by 1d8 days. So that is like 450 SP cost reduction. Which is kind of interesting because it sort of like sets an approximate value for scrolls for like learning, but I don't know. Yeah, that's fine, I think. Um, yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, I think that's solid. And I think we're just gonna straight up copy that to the cleric section as well, because I don't think there's any reason for it to be different. We remove the periods, I don't know why. Um, okay, so we're just gonna add that to that. And the cost reduction is less on clerics because it costs less, but that's fine. Um, cool. So we're just gonna remove this section because we've essentially rewritten it. This needs to be touched up and rewritten, but it is. The vibe is correct. Cool. So minus like the actual work of rewriting these sections, I think cleric, this cleric part is fine. This magic user part is fine, pending number tweaking. Um, so the only part that is really left is stats and wants, which is a whole fucking thing. Um, okay. Let's read this section, which is one that I have looked at before, because it's not in the section progress part. let's look at this to remind ourselves how wands and staffs work, because I don't really remember, and I remember I wrote some kind of wacky rules that I thought were cool for them. I don't remember what they are. And then we can go back and look at like what we have for making them. Okay, wands and staffs. All classes can cast any spell imbued in a wand or staff. The first time a spell is cast from a wand or staff, if the caster has never cast a spell before, they must roll Arcana. Success means it works. If you fail, the magical effect still occurs. However, excuse me, if they contain spells from a cleric spell list, you must save against law, and on failure suffer the Wrath of God effect. If they contain spells from any other source, save against chaos, and on failure suffer the miscast applicable to that source. Yep. When imbuing spells into a wand or staff, the spell may be cast at multiple levels, but can only be cast from the wand or staff at or below the highest level they were imbued. When imbuing spells into a wand or staff, the spell may be cast at multiple levels, but can only be cast from the wand or staff at or below the highest level they were imbued. I understand what this is saying. It could probably be reworded. When a spell is cast from a wand or staff, it consumes a number of magic charges equal to its level. Yes, I remember I made changes to this because of the levellessness of our spell system. So the reason that this sentence is here is like you have to cast spells into a wand or staff at some point to like imbue them with that magic, right? You can have multiple casters working on this, which is why it says the spell may be cast at multiple levels. So like you can have a higher level caster working on it, supported by a lower level caster who is also imbuing the spell with magic. But the overall strength of the spell that you can cast from the staff or wand is limited by the highest level of that it was imbued with, which makes sense. And then when a spell is cast from a wand or staff, it consumes a number of charges equal to its level. That is good, and that makes sense. And that is going to be, this part is going to be critical for making the wands and staffs, like how many charges it gets. This was really cool. I'm going to read it. I remember it. If there are still charges remaining in the wand or staff, but it is below the number of charges it initially had, every spell level of the imbued spell number of weeks of the highest level that the imbued spell can be cast at. I'd made that a lot more awkward, but that's more accurate. Number of weeks, roll a d10. On a non-1 result, the wand will recharge a number of charges equal to the imbued spell's level. On a 1, the wand will not recharge and will be unable to recharge the spell in the future. So I like this because is this for Oh, okay. I think the difference in the system between wands and staffs are I think it'll be in the previous section. Is that wands can only have one spell and staffs can have multiple spells. Right. So this is cool because it makes it so that wands and staffs are not infinite sources of magic, which I like. And I also really liked that like it enabled like sometimes you find wands or staffs in dungeons, like when you're dungeon crawling. Um, but a lot of times those wands and staffs have like below the maximum number of charges, but are not empty. So this like mechanic narratively justifies like any wand or staff you find to have any number of charges, which is cool. But I also like that they can recharge, because it kind of gives them a purpose or like a use long term. Yeah, anyway. In a staff containing multiple spells, only one spell may recharge at a time, and the lowest level spell will always attempt to recharge first. Thumbs up. If all of the charges of a spell are cast from a spell or wand, that spell cannot recharge. Okay. I question if that is necessary. Is this necessary? can you make staffs or wands with one charge? Because, yikes. Inheritor, this is a special note for our meme class, one of our meme classes. Inheritor mutations imbued in a wander's staff are treated as having a spell level equal to the hit die. Creature mutations blah blah. Okay, cool. This is cool. This was good to remind ourselves of. Okay, so let's go read about this. Staffs and wands can be used to hold magical power for later use. These are the steps to creating a staff or wand. A wand or staff can only ever cast the spells that it is designed to cast. Wands can hold only one specific spells. Oh no, shit. I'm wrong. I didn't read the next part of the sentence. But up to 3 different spells may be used if they are all closely related in effect. Staves can have up to 3 spells, or 5 if they are all closely related. Okay. So there's not really a difference. There is kind of a difference. Wands can hold 1 spell. Oh, okay, this must be the original, and this must be my rewrite. Wands can hold 1 spell, or 2 of the same school, and staffs can hold 3, up to 5 if all spells share a school. I actually think this should be more restrictive than it is. Even in my rewrite. I think it should be wands can hold 1 spell, period. And staffs can hold up to 3 spells of the same school. I like it being more limited, actually. I think that's cooler. And I think that if you let wands have multiple spells, it kind of blurs the difference between wands and staffs. I like that, like, wands are for one thing, staffs are like bigger things that you can do more with. Okay. Anyway, once all of the work on the physical staff or wand is completed and the proper preparations are made. Okay, this is a mess. This is gonna be a mess. Question: what does that mean? A permanency spell must be cast on the item. Okay, couple problems here. The biggest problem is that permanency is not a spell on our spell list. Permanency. Yep, it's not a spell on the spell list. I don't think that should be a requirement anyway. I don't think you should need a particular spell in order to make staffs or wands when spells are randomly determined, because that means no one basically can make staffs or wands. So I am just going to remove this entirely because I'm not going to replace it with anything similar. Followed by at least 1 casting of every spell to be represented in the staff or wand. We can just lightly reword this. At least 1 casting must be made of every spell to be represented in the staff or wand. What do you mean, however? Sorry. So I can be really critical of the parts that I've written. The maximum number of charges will also be determined at this point, as the total number of spells cast into the wand will determine its maximum number of charges. Usually, the lowest level spell is the one cast multiple times in order to increase the charges. Huh? These spells must be cast. I'm just going to read this block before I ask questions. These spells must be cast without interruption of the item, so it is usual for a group of mages or a mass number of scrolls to be used in the effort. The maximum number of charges a wand can handle is 99, while a staff can handle 49 charges. That's interesting. That, like, wands are single use, but you can use them more. and staves have multiple uses, but you can use them less. Interesting. I wonder if that should be like flipped in general. It feels like the other way makes more sense. Well, okay, I guess maybe not though, because the way I'm thinking, if we flipped it, right, then it would be like staffs are strictly better than wands, right? I think probably what they're going for here, and what I should be going for, is that wands are not strictly better than staffs or vice versa. They are good for different things. So yeah, I was sort of in the wrong mindset, I think. This makes it so that, yeah, the strength of wands is that you can cast more spells, but they can only cast one spell. Staves, you can cast less spells, but they can cast more spells. So that sense was probably nonsensical. That's okay. Um, anyway, um, focus. So yeah, that's cool. That's fine. I'm okay with that. The base number of charges used by each spell is determined by the level of spells included. This whole part seems worded awkwardly. The lowest level spell expends one charge, and the difference between zoning out while I'm reading this, and the difference between the spell level of their effects determines the number of charges the higher level effects expend. For example, a wand that can cast invisibility, 10-foot radius, and mass visibility. These aren't spells, would lose one charge each time. Okay, this must be the original. This must be my rewrite. Thank God I've already rewritten this in the distant past. Shout out to me. Thank God, because that was so hard to parse. Once the physical wand or staff to be is obtained, the spells can be cast into the device. When the spells are cast into the device, I like that I'm referring to it as the device. The combined spell level of all the instances of a spell cast into the device determines the number of charges that spell has. Right. This makes sense to me. This totally makes sense. So, if you're casting into a wand, and you cast Magic Missile at n equals 3 twice into the wand, that means that you have 6 charges of Magic Missile in the wand. Wands can hold up to 20 charges, and staffs can hold up to 50. Okay, I've reduced it, that's fine. Spells, probably because it can recharge. Spells cast into the device are absorbed by the device and have no other effect unless they are a miscast, which occurs normally. Right, that's a good clarification. When imbuing spells into a Wander Staff, the spell may be cast at multiple levels, but can only be cast from the Wander Staff at or below the highest level. When a spell is blah blah blah. When a spell is cast from a Wander Staff, it consumes a number of charges equal to a level. This may be done over the course of multiple days, but the preparations required for each day cost magic use for 200 SP. Okay. When I say this, I mean the process of imbuing. To just be money spent to create the receptacle must be, and by that I mean staff or wand, I think I'm just going to say that, must be equal to 5 times the final number of charges in the device in SP. Okay, that's interesting. So it's expensive to make staffs or wands. Well, we can do some price calculation. I am going to remove this block of original text entirely because it was really just confusing. So we're just going to work with this part that I've rewritten. This is fine, yeah. This first part, I'm happy with. No questions. The second part, I think it's just repeating a lot of what I said before. Oh yeah, my example is out of date since I made Magic Missile. I think I wrote this example mostly for me, to like elucidate this. Okay, that's fine. I think this makes sense and it's simpler. The pricing might need to be tweaked. Because it seems very expensive is my only concern. Um, and how long does it take to make a staff or wand also? I guess it's just the amount of time. Yeah. Can you make staffs wrong with one charge? If all is, I don't think this is necessary. I think because every time a spell recharges, there is straight up a 1 in 10 chance that it just never recharges again. I do not think it is necessary to add this additional clause, which is like, if you are out of juice, you could no longer recharge. That just seems unnecessary. Um, yeah, that's unnecessary, I think. Oh, this is okay. Yeah, I just copy pasted this below because I liked it, I think. So it's duplicated here and I don't need it. Cool. That makes this example section a lot less scary. This is also duplicated, but I'll sort that out later. Okay, let's read the example. Lionel, the third level magic user, and his disciple Finan. I think I remember using behind the name to generate the names for this. The first level magic user wished to create a wand containing magic missile and a weird vortex, both spells in the chaotic school. Both of these casters know both of these spells. They intend to fill the wand fully with 20 charges, so 100 SP, 20 charges times 5 SP, spent on an intricate silver inlaid oak wand. On the first day, the two use 150 SP of materials. Oh, I increased the cost, because here it says 200 SP. For Lionel to cast Magic Missile 3 times with a wand at 3rd level, and Finan to cast it once at 1st level for a total of 10 charges of Magic Missile. The next day, they once again use 150 SP of materials, and Lionel casts Weird Vortex 3 times at 3rd level, and Finan casts Weird Vortex once at 1st level for a total of 10 charges. So now 20 charges total. The wand is complete. The total cost was 500 SP. Right. 300. The total cost was 500 SP? No, the total cost was 400 SP. And the result is a wand that can cast Magic Missile and Weird Vortex at 3rd level or lower as many times as the charges allow. Okay. Yeah, that's chill. This example just needs to change because you can't. I changed it so that wands can only cast one spell versus staffs. I guess I can think about that a little more. Because that was just kind of a really gut change I made. Wand versus staff spell limits a little more and change this example as necessary. Maybe it's fine to have the wands have 2 spells and staves have up to like 5 or whatever. Um, yeah, I don't know. We'll think about that. Okay. Otherwise, this is a good example. Though I think something that we should think about, regardless of that detail, is like, what should the cost of this be versus the cost of making a like scroll or potion or researching a spell. Um, so like, right. So we'll go back to this. I didn't copy and paste this for chaotic casters, but I was intending it to be the same. Um, so, and this is for chaotic casters now. Using our placeholder price, if we wanted to make a level 1 spell scroll, that would be right, 2d4 times 50 on average. That's 250 SP to create a scroll on average. That's a lot. Um, it should probably cost like significantly more than that to make a. It shouldn't. It should cost significantly more than making a scroll to make a wand or staff, because with the wand or staff, you can cast it many times, the spell, and also you can cast it multiple times from the same object, and also it recharges. There are a lot of benefits to having a wand or staff versus a scroll. So either the scroll or potion cost is too high, or the wand and staff cost is too low, or probably both. Because it should cost like making, making a staff that can, or a wand that can cast magic missile 20 times at level 1 should cost more, significantly more, than making one scroll that can cast magic missile once. It probably does not need to cast like 20 times, cost 20 times as much, because of like there should be an incentive to make wands versus staffs in like an economy of scale way. Um, but it should, yeah, it should cost like 10 or 15 times as much. Um, which it currently doesn't at all. So interesting. Um, okay, let's write this down. Currently, the cost to make a scroll or potion is significantly, or is too expensive relatively to the cost to make a wand or staff, which both takes less time and is relatively much less expensive. I think, yeah, it's I think that the magical research, like researching a new spell, relatively costs a lot more than writing a scroller potion, which is fine. That's fine. So I think that like hmm, the problem if we're using actual dice is that we can't go much lower. And I'm ignoring spirit mod or int mod, I guess. And I probably shouldn't be. Um int for average, I'm assuming it's 0, which is not really true. Because players who pick caster classes are more likely to have higher mods and stats that are relevant. Um, but yeah, the what's tricky here is that like if we're using dice, still we can really only decrease this to 1d4 unless we want to start getting into d3s, which I'm not opposed to, but is uglier. So I guess we don't have to do that because we can just reduce the cost per day significantly. Like if we How much should it cost to make a scroll? Like a level 1 scroll. I do think like 2d4 days is like, I guess that's like 5 days. That is kind of a lot of days. I wouldn't mind if it were shorter. If it were like 1d6 days. We're just free balling with the numbers, and we're gonna see where we end up. Um, I guess we'll just copy that in the cleric section as well. D6 days. And then I want the cost to be less too. So 1d6 times 50, which is what it currently is for making a level 1 scroll, is 175. That's not that bad, actually. That's not that bad at all. I mean, it's kind of expensive, but it's not like crazy. Going back to look at the equipment list for reminders of how much things cost. That's like one chain armor. That's like 2 chain armors. That's, I think, pretty reasonable, actually. Okay, so it takes 175 SP average to make a scroll. Making a wand or staff should cost like 10 times that, about, at least, I think, is what my gut says. So, what are our costs for making a wand or staff? We just really have the preparation for a day, and then the receptacle. Where did I have that? Money spent to create staff moments equal to 5 times the number of charges in the device in SP. Okay. I think we just increase this. Like a wand with 20 charges, the base price should probably be like more like 300 SP. Do some quick math here. 300 divided by 20. That's 15 SP per charge. And that is, you can cast Magic Missile 20 times. God, that's so good. Whereas making 175, whereas making 20 level 1 scrolls of Magic Missile level 1 would cost like 3,500 SP and also take way fucking longer. That's crazy. Just inching up the cost. Um, I want it to be somewhat reasonable. I think I will revisit this, but I want it to be a little more reasonable than it is. So that would be 400 SP for a 20 charge thing. Um, and for a 50 charge thing, that would be 1,000, which is more for sure. And then yeah, in this example, if you have a 3rd level caster and a 1st level caster, These are all using safe spell slots. Um, yeah, the math gets kind of weird for how quickly you can fill it because like higher level casters can cast more spells at higher level, so they can fill wands and staffs exponentially faster than players at lower level. Because like if they're casting safely, because like a level 1 caster who wants to fill a wand with 20 magic missiles would need to spend 20 days if they're only safe casting, um, which would cost an absurd amount of money. That would be like 20 times 200 or 150 or whatever the hell it is, which is a fucking lot. That's like 4K, right? Or like 3.5K or 3K for 150. Um, versus like an N equals 10 caster would just need to cast Magic Missile twice into the wand, which like would only take them 1 day. Like that's like a very small fraction of their spell slots. So it costs them less. So I don't actually like that. Huh. That's interesting. Why? I realize being that low on the screen probably does not look great on the overlay because the bottom is covered by the bar, which I forgot about. Um, Unless for higher level catchment bonuses, they require fewer days, exponentially fewer days, because they can cast more spells at higher level to make the device. The device. So the solution for that is maybe to increase the base cost by a lot and reduce the daily cost or eliminate the daily cost. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think that's fine. Yeah, I'm not sure there even needs to be a daily cost for materials. If you're just spending a shit ton, then that makes it so that it costs the same to make a. Well, I guess it already theoretically. No, currently the way it works is that if you're a caster working on your own, it, well, it's kind of complicated how it works currently. So never mind. Um, the wave that we're proposing would make it so that it costs all casters the same amount to create a wand or staff, just based on the number of charges, not based on the number of spells it contains. Or not based on what level of spells it contains, which I think is fine because the spell levels are linear. So like casting Magic Missile at level 3 takes 3 times as many charges and should be 3 times as powerful. So yeah, that's chill. So yeah, I think tentatively So say we want the wand to cost 1750, which would be 10 times the average amount of cost to make a level 1 scroll. It should probably be more than that, honestly. It should probably be like 2,000, and that would be tentative change. Remove per day cost increase base cost to be 100 SP times the final number of charges. And this would make it so that a wand with 20 charges costs 2,000 SP versus a normal run scroll, or I guess the scroll levels also go up linearly, versus scrolls take or cost 175 SP per charge, basically. You can kind of draw an equivalence between them, since the cost of since the cost of scrolls goes up linearly with the level of the spell. It's the same as adding another charge, theoretically, to a wand. So that makes the comparison a lot easier, actually, because we can say it's like 100 SP per charge versus 175 SP per charge. I do wonder if that is, again, not accounting for the fact that the scrolls and the potions. Yeah, that is kind of, if we are changing the dice to 1d6 and it is still modified by like int mod or whatever, like 1d6 minus 2 or 3 is kind of crazy and probably needs to be changed. Yeah, because this is 175 SP per charge at 0 mod. We could do the math real quick for the other mods, because that's easy. Because that'd just be, we get 175 SP by doing, what is it? Yeah, oh, it's just 1d6 times 50, 175. And then if the character had a mod of 1, and that applied to the number of days, it would be 1d6 minus 1 times 50. So it's just going to subtract 50 every time. So it would be 125 at mod 1, 75 at mod 2, and then at mod 3 it hits the minimum of 50. And this is a good thing to keep in mind, because I've run into similar problems with, like, I've balanced things around characters at mod 0, and then there is a character with mod 3 who comes in and completely disrupts the balance. So I think the same thing is happening here. That was the case with, like, great weapons and strength mods. Um, so I think we can just limit. We could probably make the same change that we made to make the same change you made to great weapons. A positive mod just decreases the days at 1. that's fine because that makes it so that with no mod, I'm not considering negative mods, that would make it worse. No mod would be 175 SP versus 100 for the Wander Scroll, the Wander Staff. And the int mod has no effect on Wander Scroll, Wander Staffs right now. And at a positive mod, it would be 125, which is significantly less. Um, but it still makes the Wander Staffs a lot better, not just price wise, but because it will take a hell of a lot longer to make scrolls or potions. Whew. Sick. Cool. Um, that was a lot. I think we covered everything I wanted to cover. Besides, like, I didn't do a lot of the actual rewriting here, which I still need to do, and I will probably try and do off stream because I don't think that'll be very exciting or interesting. Because it's just gonna be me agonizing over wording. Um, but I think let's go back to our questions to answer that we wrote down like 3 hours ago. How to use potions, wands, and scrolls. That's answered. How to make potions, wands, and scrolls. That is answered. For spells that you know, for both clerics and chaotic casters. How to research spells, newer from list, is also answered. Yeah. So I think the only remaining questions are, and we answered this. The only remaining questions are, should there be anything different for necros? For spell research, I don't really think there needs to be. I don't think it needs to be that much more complicated. The only thing that's, well, I can think about it a little bit, because the only thing that's different for necros is the way they cast spells is different, because they're component casters. Um, I don't think that'll change much for them, especially since we eliminated the daily costs on making wands or staves. Because the benefit they would have is that they would be able to cast spells faster if they got all the materials, but that shouldn't really matter. Um, I'm going to remove this because I deleted that section. We did holy water. We did spell research. Yeah, I rewrote it here. We redid this. This table, I guess we can remove, but I'll keep in for now because I'm still going to tweak numbers probably. And then, yeah, we did all of this for magic users, and we did all the stuff for staves and wands. Cool. So I think me editing this, rewording it will probably take me a while, but I think the bones of something that is better is there, which is good. Um, I feel like some of the numbers probably will falter a little bit in actual play. I think I want to look at them a little more, think about them a little more, but I think ballpark they are better slash more reasonable, especially if I make that change to how mods affect it. Um, yeah, cool, 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 cool. So I think that's about it for what I want to do on stream for this. So I'm going to take more time to do this, to do the formatting for this, probably off stream. I don't think I will. I don't know if I'll have the time to do that before next Sunday when I would like to stream RPG stuff again. So I might just move on to another thing and just do the formatting whenever I have time. Um, cool. Yeah. All right, cool. I'm gonna outro, I think. Um, if anyone at all watched or listened to that, thanks. Thank you. That was cool of you. That got really nitty-gritty and in-depth on this sort of game design and like for this really specific set of rules. Um, so if anyone did listen to that, hopefully that was interesting. Um, I definitely, obviously think it's really interesting. Um, I understand, yeah, it's probably harder to get into without the context of the system, but that's also why I'm here is to answer questions about it. Um, and try and help you get into it. But anyway, thanks for watching. If you did, um, let's see. I already said what I'm going to do on the next RPG stream. I might just move on. I'll probably do the formatting off stream. What else? What else? Um, oh, I think I may finally have settled on actual scheduled days and times to consistently stream. So that's cool. Um, I was going to say this in my schedule post, but I'll say it here too. I'm thinking Thursdays at 8 Eastern and Sundays at 8 Eastern are consistently pretty good times for me. And I think my third day would be Monday at 8 Eastern. And I'll post that schedule. I've got the schedule on my Twitters. I've got the schedule on my Twitters. I post the schedules on my Twitter, so you should follow me on Twitter for that. Link to that is in my bio, I think, here. Um, if you'd like to see more streams like this, please follow for that. I'm gonna try and stream TTRPG stuff once a week, probably on Sundays. Right now I'm playing Control. I'm gonna keep playing that on Thursday. I'm gonna start the DLC, and I'm really excited for that because that game rocks. And I may pick up a third day on Mondays because for casual Borderlands playing, which I have been doing in my free time a little bit, and I'm going to keep doing in my free time. And if I'm just doing that, I don't know, I might as well stream wherever I am in it. Um, so we'll see about that. But yeah, I think Thursdays and Sundays at 8 will be my days. And then if I can't do a Thursday or Sunday, which will happen sometimes because my schedule is really variable, then I will try and do a makeup on that Monday. Or if I just want to stream a third day for Borderlands or some other project, because I'll try to do one day for TTRPG stuff, one day for whatever ongoing single player game that we're playing, and then we can have a third day if there's anything else we want to do. So I think that makes sense. Um, yeah, I don't know. That's it. I hope my audio was better. Um, I really hope this was interesting because I genuinely think this is the most like interesting type of thing I can stream because it's like I don't know. I think it's really cool. And I don't think a lot of other people are streaming it, even though it is like obviously a pretty like niche thing. I'm hoping that at least someone will find it cool, um, or use it to inspire them to write their own RPG. Because the more indie RPGs that are out there, the better. Um, yeah, no, that's it. Um, thanks a lot for watching. For anyone who watched, if you had any questions or anything else on the way out, feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, thanks a ton, and I will not be able to stream this coming Monday tomorrow, but I will plan on having my next stream on Thursday at 8 Eastern. So I'll see you then. I'll post a schedule for that. And hell yeah. All right. Thanks a lot for everyone who showed up, especially to November Wolf for chatting. Appreciate that. And yeah, I'll see you. Bye bye.